Call to order. St. Joseph City Council meeting of Monday, October 16th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2, public comments. Anybody wishing to address the council? Come on up and say hi. This would be your perfect opportunity.
Hello, Council. My name is Santiago Romero. I work for Summit Commons with Mark Blanford. So we have a project that we're here to get some approval on today. So we're hoping that
Santiago's the applicant for the CUP.
Okay.
So
Okay. So we're going to talk about it on the agenda.
Yeah.
We'll bring you back then. Okay? Thank you. Anybody else wishing to talk to the council? Seeing item 3, approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any changes, issues, concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and second on consent agenda. Any issues or concerns with that? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, item 5, public hearing for delinquent.
Once or twice a year, we bring any delinquent accounts forward to you for consideration to assess the property owners on the following year's taxes for those delinquent accounts. We sent out notices, I think, to about 10 property owners. We received 6 payments, and there's 4 still outstanding. And so we have a public hearing tonight to let them be heard. And at the close of the public hearing, if you so choose, we could adopt the resolution adopting the assessments for those. Typically, what we do with these delinquent accounts is we have them paid in 1 year, 0% financing.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. That being said, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address the delinquent considerations or testimony to that, please step to the podium, name and address. Seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public hearing and then look for a motion.
So moved to adopt the delinquent assessment rule. Second.
Motion and second, resolution 2023-60, adopting the assessments for outstanding invoices. Any other concerns or questions? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lori. Item 7. Oh, sorry, 6. Sorry, I jumped ahead there. Item 6. CUP.
yes, good evening, Mayor, councilors, and members of the public. So for your consideration this evening, Council, is a conditional use permit request for outdoor storage. This has been submitted by Summit Commons LLC. The intent of this request is to allow for storage of vehicles and recreational items like boats, trailers, and ATVs within the subject property. The applicant's proposing approximately 237 total spaces within the site. The location of the site, subject property is about 8.16 acres, located north of the city property that serves as a street department facility, and then south of the Wobegon Trail and west of the manufactured home park. Just some pictures from the site here. So this first picture is taken right along the Wobegon Trail, looking south into the site. So the picture to the left is essentially the northeast corner of the site. There is vegetation that exists throughout the perimeter of the site. Mostly that vegetation is deciduous, except in this northeast corner with that gap in vegetation shown right there. This is just another picture looking west along the trail, the Wobegon Trail itself, where you can see a lot of that existing vegetation, which is again is pretty common throughout. There are spots of visibility, and of course, given that this vegetation is mostly deciduous, this looks a lot different come winter when the leaves have fallen. Another couple pictures here. The one on the left is showing the entrance to the site. The one in the bottom right is a view south of that first picture to the left. And this is just as you're coming into the property. You can see some of the existing structures from the city property that exist prior to entering into the site. Just some site details. Property is zoned B3 and surrounding property is zoned rural residential. We do have a unique element in our city code, section 502.12, which is our general performance section, which talks about outside equipment, materials, and inventory as a principal use is allowed through a conditional use permit with the provisions of the ordinance. Some site layout, there is significant wetland and vegetative areas again to the west of this existing parcel. Here you can kind of see the layout of the stalls. The stalls consist of a mixture of different pull-through types of sizes. The sizes do vary throughout the site, with the ones on the north side of the property being a little bit smaller than the ones in the middle, and that. This plan also shows the row of coniferous trees that we are recommending as a requirement for that conditional use. Part of the challenge with screening the site effectively from the trail itself, the surrounding property is pretty well screened, but from the trail there's a difference in topography of about 20 feet or so from the trail itself down to the subject site. Some site features and proposed improvements. A lot of these are also conditions of the approval. There's a proposed 8-foot chain link fence around the entire perimeter of the site. That fence will have slots in the southeast, east, and northeast sides, which are the more visible sides of the storage yard area. The surfacing will be recycled asphalt. The access to the site is provided through a existing easement that was signed between the city and the property owner a number of years ago. The access into the site will be controlled by a lock gate. Again, heavily vegetated perimeter, but mostly deciduous trees. The site is mostly visible just from the trail itself as you're walking along the Wobegon Trail. Conditions of approval. Again, the council has the right to place reasonable conditions, which can include location of access points, fencing, screening, sign restrictions, designating open spaces, operating hours and noise levels, and other conditions tied to protecting the public interest. So I'll kind of briefly go through these. These are the recommended conditions from staff and also the Planning Commission. The first one, just standard template language tied to permit requirements. The second one talks about the applicant needs to submit a land disturbance permit application prior to doing any work on the site, and all engineering and stormwater issues need to be addressed prior to that permit being issued. Number 3 talks about lighting, requiring full cutoff style lights, so they're hooded and pointed down. And we also are requiring a photometric plan with light fixture details prior to that land disturbance permit being issued. 4, we talk about prohibition of junk. We are putting a requirement tied to no storage of junked, unlicensed, or inoperable vehicles or trailers. It's not the intent of the applicant, but we also wanted to ensure that we're covered, that this is not going to become any kind of a storage yard for junked vehicles. We also talk about parking stalls. The applicant needs to clearly stripe and delineate those stalls and drive aisles, and those striping and delineation needs to occur year-round. All the vehicles and trailers need to be parked within those stalled areas, and at no time can vehicles be located outside of the stalls or block any of the drive access aisles. The storage area also needs to be screened through a combination of that 8-foot chain link fence with slots in the southeast, east, and northeast sides, as shown in that site plan and exhibit, along with vegetation in the form of coniferous trees on that northeast side where there's a larger visible gap there. Of course, condition 8 just is tied to the right to inspect the premise. The city would reserve that right and be able to inspect the premise as needed to ensure the conditions are being met. Number 9, just the outdoor storage area is going to be used by users who have entered into an agreement with the owner. The hours of operation that's being proposed are Sunday through Saturday between 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So during those hours of non-access, the gate will not be accessible, even with the users who have entered into agreement. They will not be able to come to and from that site during those hours. That is not between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. Again, access into the site is through a lockable gate. Also, a DAMA box needs to be installed in the front to allow emergency access for vehicles. Number 12, we talk about the owner dedicating the necessary easements. There is a future sewage force main that would need to go through the subject property, along with future gravity and sewer and water. So we put in language that reserves the right for the city to require that. 13, just talk about amendment. If things change as part of the applicant, or if the applicant's considering changes, that those may trigger an amendment, and they'd have to come back to the city to request that amendment. 14, just revocation. If they're not meeting the conditions, the city reserves the right to revoke. And then 15 just talks about expiration. If nothing progresses from the date of a approval, then the use and the CUP can expire within a year. So the action that's requested tonight for the council is the finding of fact resolution 2023-059, which lists those conditions that I went over. Again, the council can add, subtract, or place other reasonable conditions to the finding of fact within your packets. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. The applicant is here also this evening, so they, if needed, the council can ask questions of them as well.
Councilors?
I'd like to hear what the applicant has to say about the project.
Okay. Something?
So this is something, this project is something that Mark has been considering for quite a long time. He's the owner of the property Summit Commons. And we've done a lot of, over this past year, done a lot of research into, what would be a good use for this property. And we think that this type of use is, the most beneficial for the community and for the property itself, where it's located, and, what's suitable to go there, so.
I'm just curious, what kind of vehicles?
Mainly,
Camper?
so the demand that we're looking for is recreational vehicles, boats, trailers, things of that nature, registered vehicles,
Okay.
so.
And these aren't storage units, it's just parking
Yeah.
spaces.
Yep, just outdoor storage.
This is kind of a question for Nate or
Yes.
planning committee. Is there any restriction or, for oil seepage from cars or runoff from hazardous materials? Do we have something in, that we monitor that, or?
So we definitely can as part of the inspection process, and the CUP, if, we're noticing like environmental concerns, that'd be something that we could, try to address.
Well,
with-
since it's outdoor, not indoor,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be rain or other, I don't know, elements,
Mhm.
if there is oil or gas or other materials, that could pose a hazard to wastewater, which is Watab Creek, et cetera.
So they
So-
are, their site plan, they are grading to a new stormwater pond
Okay.
on the south side of the site. So at least as we understand their proposed use and the type of vehicles that may be stored here, or I shouldn't say vehicles, but vehicles or equipment, we understand that this would be exempt from the industrial stormwater permit that the state regulates. So they still have to comply with the state's and the city's ordinance with respect to stormwater management. And you can't quite see it too well on this graphic, but the
Essentially that,
rectangle white shape on kind of the lower right-hand side of the map is where their stormwater pond is located.
Okay.
So they are shaping and will contain that site runoff to a stormwater pond.
Well, and just another question, is that enough?
Yes,
It
I
meets all
mean,
the requirements for, just
no-
because Watab Creek is only several hundred yards away.
No different than any other parking lot where it may
Okay.
drain to a storm sewer, same.
It isolates it there, okay, very good.
So one of the things that they wouldn't be able to do if, especially if there was, you know, we'll have to monitor from a oil drippings perspective, but if I could use a fuel station, for example. Fueling areas can't do an infiltration pond, that has to be a wet pond basis for the design. That's the same as what they're proposing here. So they're taking similar precautions to what we might see at Quick Trip or one of the fueling stations.
So I have some comments and questions and concerns. The Wobegon Trail is one of the major assets of our community. And when we look at our trail center in St. Joe going west, all the way to Albany, all the way to Avon and Albany, it's like one of the most beautiful parts of the trail. And so my first reaction to this was, you gotta be kidding me. I'm gonna start on my bike ride or walk my dog or take a walk, and then right out of the get-go, see all these campers and boats and cars and whatever the heck is gonna be stored down there, you know, look down on that. It just takes away from the natural beauty of the trail. So that was my first reaction to it. And then second, and I know that it's zoned to be able to do this, and planning did their work on it, et cetera, et cetera. The second would be the light pollution. Even with hooded lights, there's still light that emanates from that, and there are residents and users of the trail that would enjoy that walk or whatever from County Road 2 to County Road 4 without the light pollution. And then third, this would get back to planning. There's an opportunity during the process with the Planning Commission for public comments. And that's a notice that's mailed out to property owners within how many feet?
350.
And how many was that?
I
Five?
don't know that offhand, but it was not a lot. Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
maybe half a dozen
So
or so.
my point,
Yeah.
it's a rhetorical point, is that type of public notice should be made available to people using the trail.
Okay.
Even though that's not in the ordinance, the spirit of something like this would be, why don't we get people that want to make public comments, that are people that are using the trail?
Yeah.
So it's the trail. This could be anywhere else in the city that would be zoned for this, but the fact that it's this close to the trail is my concern. And so 20 coniferous trees and some hooded lighting, would that create that buffer that would be appreciated by people using the trail? I don't know, but it's not a hard no, it's, are we really looking at the whole picture, and should we be going back to the drawing board on some of these requirements? It's just, it's proximity to the trail is where my concern comes from.
And
So
I would
Counselor-
echo- I mean, and I would echo him, you know, it's
Yep.
kind of the preservation of the use of Wobegon Trail, and it's becoming commercialized at that spot. I mean, we really don't see any of the homes that are along that way, and it's really, it ties very closely to that. But I get the wording of our ordinance and all that. To me, it's really the proximity of a commercial-based parking lot right next to the trail.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
wanted to raise chickens, grow marijuana,
Not yet.
other natural kinds of things that could happen there, but, so it's just the commercial use, a hard top, and then look
Blacktop,
at
stripe.
blacktop, and then looking at campers and cars and having lighting, so that's my 2 cents.
So a couple of things, just to piggyback on some of those comments, Counselor Klusner. So for notices, One thing that the council may want to look at, and what I've done in other communities that I worked in is, we posted like a sign, at a piece of property that has a land use application. So if they're going through a rezone or if they're going through a CUP, we have a visible sign that says, hey, this property is going through a land use application, rezone, CUP. If you have questions, concerns, call this number, and that number is usually a staff number that they can reach out to. That's effective in getting out the message, in addition to the standard mailings and posting that we have to do in the paper. It's much more effective, in my experience, so that might be something to consider implementing as a practice to spread the word. And then the plantings, the tough thing with this is the topography difference, right, from the trail to the subject site. That's about a 20 feet or so difference in elevation. One thing that was brought up that I haven't been able to get a hold of the county, but potentially maybe there's an opportunity where the applicant can work with the county who maintains that right-of-way along the trail and maybe do some additional plantings within their right-of-way, because that will make a much bigger difference than any plantings that we require them on the subject site to do. You know, it's
Yeah.
gonna take 15 years for those coniferous trees to grow
Right.
anyhow.
So is that go back to the Stearns County Park Board?
I think it's a conversation between the county and then the applicant. If the applicant is willing to do these plantings, then we would ask, you know, the county or the state if they'd allow them to plant these plantings along that right of way.
More of a natural barrier. I mean, when you
Yep.
look at to the east of what we're talking about here, there's the trailer court. And when you're coming down the trail, you don't even know it's there because there's lots of
Yeah.
vegetation between the north end of the trailer park and the trail. This just looks like it's gonna be right in everyone's face. So that's
Yeah, it's,
a good suggestion. I don't know.
yeah, well,
Cynthia, do you have any
That's definitely something we
insight
could,
from what we're pushing back on here?
yeah, that's definitely something we could look into. I know the parks mentioned it during the planning commission, to meet with them on things to, you know, plant there to make it, you know, blend better. And
Well, not just
Okay.
blend, it would be like a barrier. Like,
yeah,
block.
we'd like to
It's not a
block.
blend,
Kind of
it's
like a
block.
row of coniferous trees kind of
What do
on
you
that
think?
northern boundary but within the county or the state right away. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
So here's my motion is to table a resolution until applicant and staff can get together with county to see if it's feasible to move that or create a barrier closer to the Wobegon Trail. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? To
Well, and the lighting is another thing too. Hooded lighting, what does that mean?
shoots down.
Yeah,
know, but-
direct down.
And
You can still
I,
see
kn-
it.
but they have to have some kind of security and lighting, and I get all that.
No,
But-
right, you
But
gotta have
the,
it
but the
lit.
barrier would be the biggest thing for me, so that's my motion.
Second.
Motion and second to table until the two can get together and see if we can work out something with Stearns County on different placement of, the border. Motion and second, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
opposed.
Motion prevails, 3-1. Thank you. So Nate, you wanna get together and figure something
Yeah,
out?
yep,
Okay.
I'll reach back out to you, Santiago.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7. I don't know who
Yep,
has this.
I can. I wasn't sure if you were ready for it or
Oh.
not, so, and David can jump in here too if I misspeak or forget something. But we're looking at the creation of the leads record technician position. I usually get accused of being awful wordy, so I'm not gonna try to go back too far in history here for everybody, and I'm not gonna try to throw stones at past administrations at all. But basically what we're doing is, Candy's been working for us for about 2 years right now, and she occupies the position of a police clerk. And then our other staff member that's in our department is Mary Munden, who's a records specialist. Back when we were looking at hiring an additional staff, we had talked about the difference in what the duties would be. We used Flaherty and Hood to score the positions and come up with them. And with looking at Wade Park, Sartell, the requirements that Mary currently has with the agency's TAC, with the RAC position, all these BCA requirements that are coming down the pipe, she has hit every one of these marks. She's pushed herself through all the different requirements and trainings. Other cities with Wade Park, Sartell have all had these exact same positions created in this management type role. So Candy came on. She's basically a records person that we have right now. And then once we brought this up to interim administrator Jeff O'Neill, he looked at it and he understood where we were coming from, but he said being that he was here for such a short amount of time, he wasn't gonna make much for changing, but he was going to order this last pay equity study that we went through as a city. And then he thought we should just talk to David Murphy when he came on. So rather than swarm David with all of our new things, we let him get into his role for a little bit and then brought it about to him. He then proposed it to DDA to look at it, and they agreed that being that they were already doing our pay equity, they would review the position, and so he asked us to bring forward our requirements. So I worked with Mary and myself, and we reviewed what the cities of Sartell, Wade Park, and other ones, Stearns County, all do for what her capacity and her role is, and they came back with their recommendations, and so that was presented to David. So their recommendations were is that that position should be a lead records technician. So basically what we're looking to do is down the line, if we ever decide to add to the position, no different than where we are right now in St. Joe, if we ever have to add a police officer, that position exists. If we have to add a police sergeant, that position exists, but there is no lead records technician that exists, so we're asking the council to create that position. We're not asking to add a body to the police department, we're just looking to get this position in the place that it should be. So, I won't over-explain it, but if you have questions, that's basically what we're looking at right there.
Councilors? My only question is, does it fall in what our org chart looks like that was presented? Okay.
This is just a job description, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna fill it tomorrow.
Well, we have that employee who's currently working here in the wrong description. So we're asking for the council to take DDA's recommendation where this person should be placed, and then we're gonna work towards getting it in there. I know that there's been some suggestions towards opening up to an internal for a promotion to see if anybody else is interested. They'd obviously have to meet the requirements of what the BCA is requesting and requiring right now. So, but we actually have that body in place right now, but I'm not looking to add a body to that operation, if you will, to the non-sworn.
So you're basically creating a position on paper so the BCA's request can be fulfilled.
We are required to have this position, so.
Required by,
The BCA and by Stearns County, by the different records reporting systems right now. Without trying to stretch it too far, it's like having a entry-level officer or a sergeant basically doing the reverse role right now. What Mary's currently doing right now is she's overseeing, she's directing traffic of where the reports go, overseeing which ones go to court and which ones are processed and everything else. So without really going through the official process, she's overseeing the records department right now. However, she's not official on paper. They're both at the same pay grade right now.
I move that we create the position of lead records technician.
Second.
Motion and second to create a position lead records technician. One question, budget impact, Lori? It's not listed in your,
I don't have the budget impact because we're talking about the job description, but if I remember, it's right around 4,000.
very good, thank you. Motion and second to create this new position. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, very good. Next one.
Yeah, and so I
Mr.
was gonna
Dugan?
push these two together, but I didn't want to, create any kind of confusion at all. So, when interim administrator O'Neill had left and David Murphy was coming on board, the mayor attended one of our department head meetings and spoke to all of us and basically said, one of his biggest goals for us is to start thinking about succession plans and start thinking about your departments of where they will exist in the next 5 years, what kind of roles you will need, and in case if a retirement, an illness, or an absence, who will be the successor and what you would look at. Sauk Rapids recently created a deputy chief position. Sartell has that position. I know in the papers today that WJO reported that Wade Park does not, but that's not accurate. They actually have had that position since prior to 2002. They just don't have it filled right now. And when Chief Bentrud, upon retirement, asked about replacing that position, they wanted the new chief to see what his vision was gonna be first. So I'm not asking to fill this position in the 2024 budget by any means. I'm not asking that we're gonna do it in 25 or 26. I don't know when that demand will come up. But as David had proposed, right now we had DDA hired on, and as long as they were reviewing the lead records, they basically included this as part of our deal. And so, if we're gonna hire another additional police officer, that description already exists. If we need to add a sergeant before this deputy chief, that position exists. But if the situation arises where we do need a deputy chief due to growth, rather than having to pay for this service again, we have it included, and so that's why we're looking to create the position, but I have no intentions of filling it in the existing budget times, so. Yes,
So it's not in the 2024 budget?
negative. Nope.
Okay, good.
Yep,
I mean, I wasn't.
just want to have it in
I was under the
place.
assumption it was.
The number's there, but that's one of those adjustments that we can make, because we wanted to put it until the council had a discussion on where they wanted to put those positions. We left it in the budget.
Yeah, the current position doesn't exist anyway, so we're looking to just have the language there. If somebody had asked me, well, why wouldn't St. Joe look at having an investigator before they'd have a deputy chief? You don't need to create a position of an investigator. I can have a patrol officer come in and work Monday through Friday and work on investigations. There's absolutely no extra job classification goes in there. Wade Park for many years had one of their sergeants become an investigator so that they had the pay grade to have other officers, delegation and stuff like that. That's completely in your deal. Stearns County takes a patrol officer and just takes them out of the schedule and makes them their investigation. So I don't need to have the council create an investigator position to put an investigator on down the line. But a deputy chief is a whole different pay grade, whole different animal, and so the council would actually have to create the position before we can ever move to fill it, so.
And, I would assume, or I would be adamant on that being an exempt position.
Exactly, yep.
Just
Whether
so-
this
just so that's clear-
happens,
Clear in the description.
exactly, yep. Whether this happens in 5 years or 3 years or who knows what,
Right.
it's all gonna be dependent on growth. But at least as long as we already had the service contracted through DDA, David had asked me, he says, why don't you submit this as well so we can get it on the books, and so it at least exists.
So, Laurie, how many dollars are in the 2024 budget for these creation of, job descriptions?
In the deputy chief, we're showing it as a promotion, which then backfills promotion. So, again, I don't have the number right in front of me, because we're talking the job description, but I think it's roughly around 7,000 impact for the deputy chief, to fill a deputy chief from internal promotions.
Depending upon where they are in the, whether it's inside or outside too.
Right, and right now, the way the budget is presented, it just shows it as a promotion, so, internal promotion. And not backfilling a position somewhere down the line.
So basically, let's just say we agree to not do anything in 2024 with these two positions. Could those numbers could come out.
Correct?
Okay. That's all I'm asking or saying. Makes me look at it a whole different ballgame.
So I move that we move towards creating a deputy chief position in the police department.
I second that.
Motion and second, creating a position deputy police chief in the city. Any further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dwight. Street improvements.
Good evening. Kayla's gonna switch screens here for me.
To that?
I have the agenda too. This is a follow-up to a conversation that we had with the council earlier in the summer. Each year, the council considers potential street improvements that are identified in the city's pavement maintenance plan document. And so this is a follow-up to our workshop discussion, and then the second part to that, and I actually have a map here to share with you. So in addition to the streets that we identify annually for pavement maintenance, and those typically involve overlay improvements and/or what we call reclaim and pave improvements. So similar to what you saw in 2023, we had a combination of reclaim and pave and overlays in Northland and Ash Street, for example. But in addition to those streets that appear in the pavement maintenance plan, we work with the Public Works Department in terms of other streets or other areas in town that we anticipate will prevent a near-term maintenance concern. Typically, it's winter maintenance where a pavement is deteriorated to a point that come next spring, we're anticipating we're picking up pieces of bituminous. The council may recall that discussion about Kiwi Court and Kale Court, for example. So where projects have developed within the city limits, we have record drawings in terms of the date of original construction. And so I've tried to highlight for the council on these two exhibits where we have record information. Some of the annexation areas, we don't necessarily have record drawings, so the documentation of when or what was built for the street isn't very clear. Kiwi Court would be a case in point. We don't have any record drawings for that. And so I've listed when that property may have been platted or developed as the best guess in terms of its age. And so on this first exhibit, you'll see kind of front and center the Morningside neighborhood, the Foxmore Way or Foxmore Hollow neighborhood, as well as the Hill Street area and Third Avenue. Those were developed and constructed in 2004, 2005. It's been on the pavement maintenance plan and I think the council's radar, improvements to the Kleinfelter Park Trail. That was originally constructed in 1996. And then a little bit to the east of that would be the Liberty Point subdivision trail. That was originally constructed in 2003. Two other areas, or at least on this map, on the top left side of the screen, Leaf Road appears in the pavement maintenance plan, so we don't have, again, a record of when that was constructed. The county constructed the eastern portion with the County Road 2 alignment back in 2012, so that's why you do see a difference in pavement condition coming into Leaf Road. Then I'll switch screens here. Two other areas that have been identified. Another one from the pavement maintenance plan would have been the Polar Court cul-de-sac way at the northwest corner of the city. Again, no record of that construction, but the registered survey was recorded in 2006. And then lastly, and this was, if you recall, we did a repair at the intersection of 304th Street coming into, right off of Ridgewood Road, right in front of the Aztec business. We reconstructed that intersection 2 years ago, but we had also recognized that parts of 304th and Pearl Drive are also showing some distress. And so between our team and Public Works team, wanted to bring that back for consideration by the council. But this represents at least the streets identified in the 2019 pavement maintenance plan, as well as streets that Public Works and I have concerns about the present pavement condition. So next step, if the council were to choose to move forward with an improvement, you recall we have followed the 429 process, which involves commissioning a feasibility report, which would lead to a public improvement hearing, and then eventually ordering design of the improvements. So first step here was to I think, present the slate of potential project areas and get direction from the council.
Just one question, Randy, and on those things that we have no, information on?
Yep.
Are we just going out there and going like, it looks bad, or?
Well, in those instances, what we'd like to do is collect soil borings. So
Okay.
we would commission, and we would identify that as part of the feasibility report, but we would
Okay.
like to poke a couple holes in the
Okay.
ground and see what's there for pavement.
No, and I don't know the yeah, thanks, that was a scientific answer that I needed, thank you.
But as far as in those areas, as far as the bituminous is concerned, it's pretty much
I
gone.
mean, you can see it, right? You
Yeah.
It's,
Yep.
okay, okay. And the boring would say how much of the sub-layer?
How
we
much
have to-
gravel and then
Yeah,
the
okay.
soil type that's
Yeah.
underneath. So that ultimately goes towards, the design of that pavement structure and how robust it needs to be.
Okay,
So, Randy and Ryan, this Polar Court, what shape is that in? Is it as lousy as Kiwi Court,
No,
that bituminous? It's
No.
better than?
it's better than. And
there's only a couple.
if you were to, I could
I
maybe
mean,
pull up
Polar
an aerial
Court, where do you
photograph.
find, that's former township property, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So how does that come up on the radar? It's just such a tiny, how many people live out there? Huh?
Two
Two
lots. Now, it
Public
goes
street.
on you go back
It's
to.
a public street, but why not just leave them alone if they don't, I mean, maybe they don't want their street improved.
Perhaps
I know
not.
that's not your line of work.
No,
but
no, well, in
It's not,
fact,
it's a dead end.
after the annexation, I mean, that's one reason why
that
we did an update to the pavement maintenance
No, I
plan.
get
is
it.
that
I understand that.
So, I mean, that's unfortunately the council's challenge is, is this a high enough priority that you consider it for an improvement or delay it?
I mean, we want to have good streets, I get that, but I mean, it's not like it's on a thoroughfare. And I have no skin in the game. I didn't even know about that place or who lives out there. And then Leaf Road, is that a high-traffic area?
I mean, both of these are relatively small, narrow neighborhoods. They're dead-end streets, so no, there is not a lot
Yeah.
of traffic.
And
It's no different than Kiwi Court or KO Court.
Yeah,
Yeah. Leaf, though, I would put it in the same condition as kiwi and kale.
yeah, right. Well,
So the-
Kiwi is bad, I mean, just for us to do snow plowing, you've said that it's just, we have lots of houses around there and you're just plowing up asphalt, so that has to be fixed, and I've talked to some residents up there about that it needs to be fixed, so,
We could turn them into minimum maintenance roads.
I'd be remiss for not mentioning it. The other element that typically comes into play with this conversation is the extension of municipal utilities and how that times
Yeah.
with any improvement. So I recognize sometimes the life cycle of the street doesn't coincide with whether it be redevelopment or development intentions of the neighborhood.
so I'm just asking about the Polaris thing, or whatever it was called.
Polar, yes.
Polar.
Well, and we can order the feasibility report and turn it away later,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
I mean, we've done that in the past, where we've
Yes.
got a bunch of roads that said, well, let's not do this one,
Yeah.
let's do this one kind of thing. But at least this gets it on the docket, and
Yeah.
it aligns us with the
Okay.
transportation plan we have in place.
Then we can hear from the people involved at the
Yeah.
public hearing before anything goes.
Sure.
They might want it.
And this follows our, we asked for this maintenance plan, pavement maintenance plan, so we'd
Right.
like to follow it as
Yeah.
much as we could. But, so I make a motion to, what is the motion? 2023-61, professional services for the feasibility report.
A second.
Motion and second, resolution 2023-61, conduct a feasibility report for 2024 street improvements. Other further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Department reports. Nothing? All right, good. Well, I have two reports.
Nothing? Oh, it's an overhead projector.
It is.
I haven't seen one of
It's
those since
space age
high
technology, it's an
school.
overhead projector. So,
A little bit more advanced than the one from high school.
So at the APO meeting last week, we discussed or approved the 2050 MTP plan. And I just wanted to show everybody what Nate and Randy and I kind of talked to the APO about. Our capacity, this isn't really good color because the purple is capacity, right, Randy? You got that? It could be black.
Purple's expansion.
Okay, purple is the expansion ones, and we have 7th to 16th from Field Street, 7th to 16th. We have Westwood Parkway, which is out in Industrial Park. We have 20th Avenue Southeast at Jade Road going to College Avenue, 16th. So they're listed like SJ, whatever, S15, whatever. And so the last one was Gateway Avenue, which is Minnesota to Lake Sarah. And I talked a little further about, at one point we had the Northern Corridor, which is the blue line way at the top, and the Field Street aligned G2, which is south of Lake Sarah and connects to 121. And that was like a 2-year process. I don't know, Bob, you remember that, I'm pretty sure, but. And with the growth we see on the south, this plan is approved, but we're not gonna put these roads in anytime soon, but it's good for us to get I think, to get that in the transportation plan, the loop around Lake Sarah to 121. Because as we see homes and event centers and everything else on the south side of town, for those people to not go through the city, or actually to go into 94 or into St. Cloud, that Jade Road and Gateway extension becomes kind of a circle road around St. Joe. Now, getting to Sartell is a different story from the south. I mean, we're gonna have to go through, some other rigmarole, but, so anyway, the system preservation plans, we've talked about these before. 2nd Avenue, Minnesota Street to County 75, and College Avenue extensions, and Baker Street extensions, and this all aligns with our transportation plan pretty well. So the last thing I said is, or we talked about, I talked to Vicki and Randy, is we modify this every 5 years. So somewhere at the 4-year point, or 3 or 4-year point, we should reevaluate our transportation plan so that we can align with the next MTP plan for the next cycle. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we went through this. These all align with our goals. We're probably not going to get to any of these. They're all financially constrained, But if for some reason that 16th or the Jade Road up to 16th would, help, if we get a, lift station down there somewhere, then that would be kind of the next road going north. But all right, the other, maybe you want to talk about the other questions?
I was saying, if I could add to
Yeah,
your
go
statement, Mayor, the importance or significance of this list, or having these potential projects show up in the APO's transportation plan is, this enables the city to apply for federal funding for these projects. So it's not committing you to doing any of them, but having them in the fiscally constrained plan allows the city to make application for federal funds. So that's the importance of trying to get as many projects in both the preservation bucket as well as the expansion budget.
And really the goal is, to me, is, as people find the quickest way out of town or into town, and finding the loops east and west and north and south as a larger capacity corridors. So that was the APO. The CVB also met today. I'm just gonna go through some of the notes, and Nate, tell me where I go wrong here, but Small Shop Crawl is in full swing. They're gonna do some marketing with it. They're gonna put up some digital boards. They're gonna put it on social media. That's, the end of next month. EDA, the CVB is gonna come to EDA meeting tomorrow and give a presentation about a proposal. And upcoming events are being planned. There's a trunk and treat by the J.C.'s, and there's some other things going on, and that's all gonna be advertised. We have a Sherpa contract, I think, in place, or we're gonna get one?
We have one.
We have one in
Yep.
place, and Sherpa is a service that comes out and does like visit St. Joe, go to Milk and Honey, and then have dinner at Crew, and then go walk the orchards at Collegeville or something. They put together these planning packages so you can come for like a day trip. And then they push it on their site. And let's see, the last thing is, Mary's gonna get a hold of Shauna for the CGMC Summer Conference in 2024. We haven't heard where they're at in planning for that. Yeah, so Mary's gonna touch base, and I'm gonna touch base as well, because I know, I see, I'll meet with the CGMC board next week, and I'll talk to Emma about where they're at as well. But we wanna make sure we're following up, because we're collaborating with Wade Park on their 2024 conference in July. 2024 conference in July. Yeah,
So CVB has got an idea for another, like, festival thing.
yes.
Is it normal that it would go to EDA first
I see.
before coming here? I was just kind of confused that it's on the EDA agenda for tomorrow. Is that where this kind of, hey, we have an idea for a festival gets bandied about in EDA
I
as
see.
opposed to,
And I suggested EDA because the CVB reports to the EDA,
Okay.
and there'll be some funding requests.
okay.
And that's why. And if it goes through there, then we'll get the
Then
city
it comes-
council and
then
and
it comes
staff. and-
here.
Yeah, that'll get city council staff involved about what the real need
Because
is.
they gotta pull permits and everything else
Yes.
has to come.
Then
from
we
here
did have a
anyway.
staff meeting at our department
Okay.
head where we kind of went over a little bit of the,
Okay.
kind of the event and what it may entail.
Yeah, I mean, I think if EDA says, no, it's a stupid idea, then we're done. You know, it started back in the pandemic. They had this idea on how to get
Yeah.
folks in town, and it's just kind of been sitting on the shelf for the longest time.
Okay.
They're bringing it back. So last thing is we're changing the meeting time. We have been meeting at noon on the second Tuesday. We're gonna start meeting at 9 on the second Tuesday. That seems to fit everybody's schedule better.
Monday, second Monday.
Monday, second,
Yeah.
sorry, second Monday.
Talking
I said
EDA.
CVB.
Oh,
Everybody would rather see a morning meeting, and we had really good attendance today, so that's a good sign. So if you can make 9 AM, second, yeah. We'll get you involved. Any questions? Any staff? Anything going on? All right.
I got one.
Timing's everything? Yeah, Bob, what? What's up?
I would like to know how our fundraising is going with the YMCA. There's nothing coming out on that, and a lot of people are asking questions, where, what, and why. And, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has seen any type of numbers, but we pay whatever that firm's name is now.
Kinetic.
Yeah, we pay them, thousands and thousands of dollars already, and I haven't seen any type of
Do you,
situation on it.
do you want to try and explain the silent phase? I mean, we had this discussion.
Councilman Loso, that's a great question.
It is.
And I could comment on it, the mayor could.
Yeah.
David Murphy could. We are making significant progress in the quiet phase, and Kinetic will be coming to the city council to give a report on that
Okay.
in the near future.
August,
Hmm?
August of next year?
Not August
No,
of
no,
next
I don't-
year, in the near future.
Yeah.
So,
They're very, what I get out of them, I went to the last
And the mayor was
one.
at our last fundraising committee, meeting that we had last Tuesday, so it's moving forward.
It is.
And the parties that have made some significant commitments, it's just a process of how and when to announce that in terms of where we're at.
Yeah,
So,
I'm getting the same questions, and so I brought that to the board, or the finance committee, or the,
Cabinet or whatever we call
yeah,
ourselves.
whatever they call themselves, the campaign committee. Because I'm getting the same questions, and we are gonna release something, it's just timing is more than anything else. They are working their tails off, they've got some good connections, they're making progress. It just, yeah, I was telling them about the ebb and flow, it goes hidden for a while, then comes back out,
Okay,
goes hidden
fine,
for a while.
fine, quiet.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I have similar concerns as you, and I brought it to the committee. Anything else? Anybody? Going once, twice, thrice? Item 12,
Move to adjourn?
Second.
motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
And I know I had something else.